Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street, recharged, energized, got some time. First video, XDC this week. It's been a while. Guys, XDC, XinFin, one of my favorite projects here. We'll go into this video quickly. It was really cool from earlier this year at the World Government Summit. But there's been some really interesting news the last few days in terms of, Synapity. So moving from Moneta Go to XinFin's network. So this is really cool because this guy is very heavily involved with trade mechanisms, trade finance around the world. Worked for some really cool projects and companies in the past. In particular, one that sort of sits out to me is Oracle. This becomes very interesting because of the integrations of the likes of XinFin, Oracle, Quant, all of the big powerhouses moving forwards in the financial industries of blockchain and technology. Of course, I'm not saying that this is a direct link, as if just because he worked for Oracle means that he's going to be specifically working on that. I'm sure he will be at some point. But there's some other big companies here as well, like Maersk, which is really interesting because obviously that is a huge supply chain mechanism. So this guy's got experience in a lot of really interesting fields that are going to be very appropriate for XinFin's audience and target markets, not necessarily just as well in the trade market itself. So I think this is really interesting. Over 20 years of firm experience here. Now, I don't usually pay too much attention for people moving around, but in work environments. But when something like this happens and someone like this comes across, it's very interesting, especially when we dot connect the fact of the Trada token launching with the aspect of trade tech, which is really interesting. And they do mention in this article here on GT Review as well about this whole aspect of the trade finance having its own sort of DLT system and its own tokenomics is really, really interesting. It seems like the timing is perfect to bring someone in like Sunil, which is really, really cool to see. So again, further advancements really on XinFin. People always say like, oh, it's just I always remember the videos last year. It makes me laugh when I think back about it. Like many people were shouting about XDC and everything being a scam, and perhaps they didn't understand what XinFin was or what its capabilities are and what it's trying to achieve in the future, both in the near future and the future, right? So for me, when I did that video of is XDC a scam, like people's opinions, we made it very apparent, with the likes of R3 Corda links and what it's doing with Quant, LCX, all these other big projects we've seen this year. And I made an observation and a comment in a few videos back that this year we're seeing a lot more communication, not just to retail investors, but people in general. And I think that's really important if they want to onboard more and more projects and business. But we are seeing them building their ecosystem properly now. Not so much promises or thoughts anymore. It's actually actions. Actions speak louder than words. We covered the medical aspects that it was looking into over the last few months and onboarding projects in the healthcare system to obtain the blockchain technology within that. And that's a multi-trillion-dollar market, guys. The trade market with trade tech is trillions of dollars. So when people ask me like, well, why are you investing in XDC or so interested in XinFin? As I mentioned in the previous video, I missed out on the original markets where XRP and all these started out, right? And there's an argument to say, on paper, XinFin is arguably a better technology, speed-wise, and its abilities cross everything. And arguably, it's starting to get better partnerships, in my opinion, and more strategic partnerships that actually correlate with what blockchain is supposed to be, not just in finance, but in anything and everything around the world that you can possibly think of, from supply to health to transport, everything, right? It's not just the only chain that's doing it. But what I really liked about XinFin was it had the public sector and it had the private sector as well. And it's now starting to build the pieces together. And I feel like this is like being a part of Ripple's originality, or even maybe Stellar XLM and some of those other tokens that are out there. Not necessarily talking about the tokens, I'm talking about the companies themselves, the projects themselves. The tokens are what they are, right, in terms of its usability, its utility, how it's used within the blockchain systems. And we're just fortunate as retail investors to have some formality of investment in these, right, and hope that it does well over the next few years and decades, etc. So for me, it was like being at those beginning stages. I've got Ripple XRP, I've got XLM. I wish I was in even earlier than I was already, but it is what it is, and I'm sure we'll make some great profits on those regardless. I always think that with XLM and XRP, if you can get anything under $1 for those two for the next 5-10 years, it's going to be a phenomenal return. And I feel similarly to XDC. I feel like it's an opportunity to accumulate big bags that I would have dreamt of to have with the likes of Ripple and XLM quite reasonably. I wouldn't say easily, it depends on the financial situations of everyone, of course, but it is a best opportunity possible because of the current price points, which we'll go on to in a second. But as I mentioned, this for me is really interesting. This is a really interesting move, another adoption of some great people moving into XinFin and coming across from big companies, and companies as well, very interestingly, that are also operating already with XinFin or along those lines. So that experience, the industry experience that this particular person has is quite interesting. If you can dot connect and see the future of this, it is really, really prominent in my mind. So it just boosts this in my head about its XinFin and XDC and the importance and the excitement around it. I'm going to play this video because it's also really important to understand like what's happening in the next few years. We talked about the RTGS system. We're going to follow this more up in the quant video later today as well, and all the other financial and ISO coins. This video is really interesting. I'm going to play it because it formulates what's coming. We know by 2025 probably the existing financial system will be completely shut down and a new one will come in. There's so much to happen in these next 2-3 years. While we're distracted by energy and all these other things, this is going on in the background. The real people like the World Economic Forum, the World Government Summits, all these people coming together, making decisions on the behalf of our governments and everything like this. Because at the end of the day, our governments are not in charge. They're just there. I tend to call them puppets sometimes, because the ultimate people above them are the ones that make decisions. Just have a quick listen to this, guys. This is really interesting.
And it's not about the U.S. versus China. It's about what underpins a world order is always the financial system. I was very privileged. My father was an advisor to Nixon when they came off the gold standard in '71, and so I was brought up with a kind of inside view of how very important the financial structure is to absolutely everything else. And what we're seeing in the world today, I think, is we are on the brink of a dramatic change where we are about to, and I'll say this boldly, we're about to abandon the traditional system of money and accounting and introduce a new one. And the new one, the new accounting, is what we call blockchain. It means digital. It means having a almost perfect record of every single transaction that happens in the economy, which will give us far greater clarity over what's going on. It also raises huge dangers in terms of the balance of power between states and citizens. In my opinion, we're going to need a digital constitution of human rights if we're going to have digital money. But also, this new money will be sovereign in nature. Most people think that digital money is crypto and private, but what I see are superpowers introducing digital currency. The Chinese were the first. The U.S. is on the brink, I think, of moving in the same direction. The Europeans have committed to that as well.
Now, the reason I put that video out there, it's not new news. We've kind of known this for quite some time, many years, in fact. But the point being is that these next few years are going to be really influential to the financial markets, the financial world, and us as people. The great point there about which path are we going to choose, decentralized or centralized, is there even going to be a choice for us? And what do these choices outcome? Because it all sounds interesting technologically, and tracking, traceability, verification, processing, all this really cool stuff. But what's the bad side? But my point being is that these next few years are going to be massive. And that's my point about XDC being so early, and the fact that these next few years are going to be so important and lucrative, that we could be in a really good position right now. We're in a bear market, we're in a winter market, the prices are low. I do generally believe that we're still going to see lower prices of Bitcoin. We'll have to see, but I'm still anticipating between $12,000 and $15,000 for Bitcoin, and that will drag as well the rest of the market down with it. Not suggesting that all of these are going to plummet even further, but you have to do the risk assessment. That's why we talk about DCAs and markets and charts and things like this. But more importantly, is understanding what's to come. Forget the now. Of course, you can make the small moves and investments on short-term and short-term gains. And if you're good at that, brilliant. For me, I'm more interested in long-term and accumulating as lower prices as possible for a bigger goal. One of my big principles is to try and exit as much as possible out by 2025, not just because of the financial system, but I think that there will be a lot of gains from the last few years that I've been investing. And I feel like the mass adoption will kick in. More and more people will be interested at this point in time, like significantly more than what we saw over the last 2 years, in my opinion. For now, everyone's kind of put off. And I think that XDC is a great pricing aspect right now, and is a great technology, more importantly. The utility is brilliant. The industries it's catering for are unbelievable. And this is what identifies to me as a bullish move, a bullish project, and something I'm really interested and excited about. Last point before we go into the chart. QuarterCon is this week, today and tomorrow, respectively, at the time of recording. I may be going tomorrow. If anyone else is, do let me know. There's fundamental aspects of different companies here, of course, mostly R3 related employees. But of course, XinFin is heavily related with R3 Corda. They do have representatives going with there, including their partners like Impel, TradeTech, and all these guys as well. And of course, there's some other companies here like Ericsson, Microsoft Azure, JP Morgan, Intel. Ask yourself why they're all going. Well, they've already been working together for some time. Of course, Vodafone Business are really heavy in blockchain right now. Really interesting to see this momentum. We talk about like Energy Web Foundation with their Vodafone interlacing of blockchain technology. 4G, 5G, 6G, and the rest are yet to come. Accenture, of course, huge. These guys don't just meet up for a jolly. These guys are talking about anything and everything blockchain and the technology and the future of humanity, both financially, both in trade and the public and private sectors, respectively, as well. This is really important, guys, to understand all this stuff going on in the background, because these aren't just utility tokens. They're not just a bit of fun. Something serious is happening, and it's really exciting to see this, but also to be cautious of what is to come potentially as well. Guys, let's look at the chart. We'll switch into this. We're having a bit of a nice move, actually, with XDC in the last few days. Of course, the news coming out that we just mentioned earlier about the acquisition of new members of staff. That has kicked in a nice little jolt up. Of course, we've had the plays of XRP and things like this as well. And the market did see overall bit of an intake upwards. But it's nice to see XDC moving up in a slightly upward trajectory. I'm still buying XDC. Anything under 10 cents is an absolute steal for me. An absolute bargain and excitement in my mind. Currently floating around this 3 cent mark. Now, I'm not expecting us to support at this level immediately. We've made this observation and point before, that this area is untested, and we do need to probably test this a few more times around this area to confirm it as a support level. That being said, profits probably have been taken, or at least identified that a move has been made, which is quite a nice one. If we just take this lower point back down there and upwards here, a good 30% move over the last week or so. Really nice to see this. But I do anticipate us to test these lower grounds again around the sort of 2.8 cent mark. And don't be too disheartened if we come back to that sort of 2.5 cent mark at some point as well. We'll have to see how it plays out. But for me right now, am I buying right now? No, I'm still anticipating we might have a drop down further. I'm not selling any XDC until at least 2025, and until at least we've seen price points well over 50 cents. That is my move. I'm trying to accumulate as much as possible. This is my strategy, my thoughts. You guys out there might have different avenues. Do let us know in the comments below what you've been doing with XDC the last few days, how you're feeling about it overall as a project, as a utility, and everything else that we've just spoken about in this video. Because as I said, I think this is very early days. We've seen a great move the last couple of days. I don't think it's over. We've got a lot more to come in the future. I'm just anticipating that, the macro events around the world are still here. Probably getting worse over the next couple of months. We've got the energy and stuff coming out as well, and how much people can actually invest over this 6-month to 12-month period will be remains to be seen. So we just have to be cautious of these things, not get too excited just yet. But it's always good to see some green, right? Good bit of positivity in this winter market that we are seeing. Performance indicator wise on the round side, you can clearly see 14% up on the week, which is fantastic, 11% up on the month, and 21% up on the 3 months. It's one of the very few projects that has that kind of green on the 3 months. The 6 months is still very, very low. This is still indicating to me that there's plenty of opportunity to accumulate at lower regions. The RSI is floating around at 64 on the 14 days, still very high for me personally to be jumping in right now. I'd like to see that come back down to at least the 45 to 40 area. As you know, that's an area that of interest to me, and particularly more importantly, from a longer term perspective, the 28-day being closer to that 42, 45 mark, and the 90-day being nearer 40 as well. But I'm not disheartened by it massively at all. Would I be buying XDC right now? Well, as I said, I will be waiting for a bit of a dip. We are on a bit of an upward trajectory at the moment and not confirmed yet that we're coming down. So do we identify a support level? I'm not so sure just yet. As I said, I do think it will be coming down to test the lower regions again at some point. But for sure right now, if you're brand new to XDC, just be wary that we've already had a bit of an upward spike in the last few days. We're now testing this area. So it might be worth thinking about the dollar cost averaging perspective, i.e. don't chuck all your money in straight away or just because you've been paid. Think about it logically that actually this might be a good area for the long term in general, but also that it might be coming down low and you could grab some opportunities there as well. And it's the same process on the way up also, depending on your strategies. I mean, you know, if you're looking down here and up here, 30% is still a great number, of course. But if we're looking at something like up here, where we're near the 4% mark, that's even more so. But you're looking at kind of like a double your position from the lower regions down here at sort of 2.5 cents, right? So it's how you see it, how you want to play it. But that's how I do it. And as I said, I'm long term. I'm always honest with you guys. If I'm ever selling any tokens at any point, I will tell you. But for me, XDC will not be sold in my portfolio. That's for sure. For a good 2-3 years at least, as a bare minimum, unless we see like mental prices, but I will keep you informed along the way. So guys, that's XDC in this video. Really interesting stuff. We'll keep you updated as the days and the weeks go by. We're going to move on to the next video later today, but guys, thank you so much for watching this one. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you have not done so already. But until the next video, thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.